Yashodanandana Rajajananandana Yamunatiramanachari Yamunatira Manachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Niri Varidhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Niri Varidhari Yashodanandana Vrajajananandana Yashodanandana Vrajajananandana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramam Parvajakacharya Astur Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Iskon Samstap Charja Srila Prabhupada Ki Namcharya Srila Hari Das Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sago Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shaimakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadvipa Dham Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. No. Just by way of introduction, I'll say a little bit about where I've come from and so on. I joined ISKCON in California, and my first weekend was exceptional. I arrived in San Francisco on a Friday. I took a bus across America to San Francisco, and then a devotee picked me up. That was the first devotee I met. He's still in ISKCON, and his wife is also. And the second devotee I met was the temple commander. He was from Cuba. I'd never met anybody from Cuba. So that was interesting. And he said, you can go to Los Angeles tomorrow because there are two devotees driving a car. You can go with them. There's room in the car. He's going to miss the story, so I'll have to wait for him. You don't want to miss the story. So I said, what's going on in Los Angeles? Why are the devotees driving to Los Angeles? Because Srila Prabhupada is there. And you can hear Prabhupada give a lecture on Sunday morning. So this was my first weekend. We drove all day Saturday. We stayed in the temple overnight. And we got up and went to Mangalartik and chanted japa. Prabhupada was on Venice Beach. Venice Beach is not far from the Los Angeles temple, so Prabhupada would go there to walk. And then he came for the greeting of the deities, and that's the first time I saw him. And then he gave a class. And my impression was that, I felt gratitude for him for opening the ISKCON temples, giving us a place where we could actually practice spiritual life and more or less start anew. We had kind of burned ourselves out materially, or we felt frustrated in some ways with materialism. After I attended college, I was accepted into a graduate school, but I was just tired of university life, and I thought, let me think more seriously about the meaning of life and spiritual life. So I went to California with the idea I'll spend 6 months there and see what it's like to be an ISKCON devotee. And Krishna was happy, and he thought, I'll reciprocate with this devotee. So on the first weekend, I got to meet Srila Prabhupada. That was a very powerful experience. Prabhupada said something in the class that was, like he wrote in his books. His classes and his books were almost the same. He was speaking in the same way in the classes that he spoke in his books. And in fact, his books were spoken actually into a microphone, After the first canto, he got a dictaphone. After he'd published the first canto, he used a dictaphone. And he said in this class I heard, he said, there's prerequisites in spiritual life, just like in material life. If you want to go to law school, study law, you have to complete your undergraduate degree. So this happened to be relevant because I had done my undergraduate degree. I had at one point considered going to law school. So I was listening, what's he going to say next? And he said, so in spiritual life, the prerequisite is that you have to be in the mode of goodness. So you have to have knowledge, spiritual knowledge, it's not so much just a rule, but it's actually a prerequisite for knowledge and realization. You have to practice being in the mode of goodness. That means practicing the regulative principles and so on. Or another analogy is that, if you want to fly, you have to go to the airport. You have to get to the place where you can fly. So my name was given to me by Prabhupada 6 months later when he came to California for the Ratha Yatra. I joined in January and then spent 6 months in San Francisco, and Prabhupada came there for the Ratha Yatra. My name is Tattvavit. You might know this word Tattva because it appears, you have the Pancha Tattva, you have Vishnu Tattva, you have Atma Tattva, you have, Tattva means the truth. It refers to the absolute truth. There's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter of the first canto. Vedanti Tattvavidas. Tattvavidas means one who knows the truth. He knows this in three features. There's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Paramatma is the Lord in the heart, and Bhagavan is Krishna, and the Brahman is the impersonal energy of the Lord. My service is editing. I learned how to edit and prepare magazines and books by serving on the Back to Godhead staff for 5 years, 5 or 6 years. And I've edited about 40 books, and I've written about 40 magazine articles. And I went to India for the first time in 1986. That was the anniversary, the 500th anniversary of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in the world. So it was a big event. It was called, oh, Krishna. Sorry, I spilled the water. Can you bring a towel? The name for this event was the Quincentennial. Quin means 5, and centennial means 100. So 500th anniversary of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in the world. And not only ISKCON was celebrating that. The knowledge of the centennial was kind of general knowledge. People picked it up from the press releases and so on in the newspapers. You know, ISKCON was especially promoting it, but it made its way into the media that ISKCON is celebrating the 500th anniversary. So is everybody else. And Lord Chaitanya is not, 100% known in India. There's some parts of India that know him less. He's mostly known in West Bengal and Vrindavan. But it got to the point, that it was kind of general knowledge. And there was one billboard in Calcutta that I saw. The State Bank of India put up a billboard. 500 years of, and they used the word Hymn. You know that word? That's a more or less Christian word. Hymn. So what were they saying? 500 years of hymn. That was another way of saying 500 years of kirtan, right? Prabhupada sometimes said that the prayers in the Catholic Church or the Christian churches, those are also kirtan, the songs that people sing. When I was a young boy, my brother and I were in the choir in the church, in the Catholic Church. And my brother had a good voice, so he was sometimes singing a solo part of the song. And there's one song in particular that relates, devotees can relate to it. It goes, Holy God, we praise thy name. And the song is about the names of God that the Christians use. So Prabhupada would like to emphasize the universality of spiritual life. Whether you practice this way or that way is not as important as that you be a good practitioner. And I was attracted to Krishna consciousness from the Catholic religion because most of the Catholics, take intoxicants, they eat meat, And I thought, I don't want to be stuck in that, you know. I'd rather be with the devotees practicing vegetarianism and abstinence from intoxication. And I didn't want to be a hippie anymore. I had gone through that. So I was eager to join the devotees, and many nice devotees. You know, you meet many nice people in ISKCON. As I said, I was going to accept it into a graduate school. I said that, but I didn't want to go. I told you just now. But so what attracted me in ISKCON was that they had so many books and they had so much philosophy. And I thought, okay, I'll fulfill my desire for higher studies by becoming a devotee and learning about this philosophy. So let's read some philosophy. Time for class. From the 6th canto, chapter 19, text 5. Just look at the introduction to the chapter to see what's going on. This chapter explains how Diti, Kasyap's wife, executed her husband's instructions about devotional service. From the first day of the bright fortnight of the moon. That's like now. Now the moon is full. So this is considered when the moon is full. The bright fortnight, there's 2 weeks after the moon is full. That's the bright fortnight. But this was in November, December. She did a vrata, the Pumsavana vrata. Describes how she would do this. It had to do with the worship of Lord Vishnu and Mother Lakshmi, Lord Vishnu's wife. She glorified Lord Vishnu for his qualities, and his qualities are listed as mercy, patience, power, ability, greatness, and so on. Lord Vishnu has all these qualities, and he can also bestow these qualities. It's sometimes said that the living entities have a certain percentage of the Lord's qualities. They can have up to 74% of the Lord's qualities in some quantity, not full quantity like Lord Vishnu. So we should desire that. Prabhupada stressed that being a devotee means you develop the qualities of a devotee. They're listed 26. There's one list of 26 qualities. He was giving a class in the very first temple in New York. I was hearing, and he said, it's so important to develop the qualities. And then he said on the recording, he said, I gave you that list, the 26 qualities. Do you have that list? Where's that list? And one devotee says, oh, it's in the drawer. And so Prabhupada says, okay, bring it. And he would read the qualities. He always wanted the devotees to develop these good qualities. So that should be the result of our practice. We're trying to develop our character. So Diti, while glorifying the Lord, she also performed some worship. She decorated the deity with ornaments. And it involves inviting the Lord. Generally, when we do a program or chanting, we're invoking the Lord's presence. We're asking the Lord to be present. So we invite him. And one way the pujaris do this when they worship the deity, they offer water and say, please wash your feet, please wash your mouth, please sit here. We'll give you a bath, and then we'll put clean clothes. So in this way, one does this. So today's verse, text 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Please repeat. Yata Tun Kripaya Bhutya Tejasa Mahima Justa Isha Gunanai Sarvais Tatu Si Bhagavan Prabhu. Let's just look at the synonyms so that we know what we're chanting. Yata, as, you, Kripaya, with mercy, Bhutya, with opulences, Tejasa, with prowess, Mahimarjasa, with glory and strength, Justa, endowed, Isha, O my Lord, Gunai, with transcendental qualities, Sarvai, all, Tata, therefore, Asi, you are Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhu, the Master. Okay, Yatatvam Kripaya Bhutya Tejasa Mahimojasa Justa Isha Gunai Sarvais Tatosi Bhagavan Prabhu. Please chant. Tatam Kripaya Bhutya Tejasa Mahimojasa Gunai Sarvais Tatosi Bhagavan Prabhu. Yatatam Kripaya Bhutya Tejasa Mahimojasa Justice Gunai Sarvais Tatasi Bhagavan Prabhu. More. Yatatvam Kripaya Bhutya Tejasa Mahimojasa Translation, O my Lord, because you are endowed with causeless mercy, all opulences, all prowess, and all glory, strength, and transcendental qualities, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of everyone. Purport. In this verse, the words Tatasi Bhagavan Prabhu mean, therefore, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master of everyone. Supreme Personality of Godhead is endowed with all six opulences in full. And moreover, he is extremely kind to his devotee. Although he is full in himself, he nonetheless wants all the living entities to surrender unto him so that they may engage in his service. Thus he becomes satisfied. Although he is full in himself, he nonetheless becomes pleased when his devotees offer him patram pushpam palam toyam. A leaf, patram, pushpam, flower, palam, fruit, toyam, or water. When his devotee offers him these things in devotion, he becomes pleased. Sometimes the Lord, as the mother, sometimes the Lord, as the child of Mother Yashoda, requests his devotee for some food, as if he were hungry. So Krishna's mother, she's requested by Krishna, please give me some food, as if he were hungry. Sometimes he tells his devotee in a dream that his temple and his gardens are very old now and that he cannot enjoy them very nicely. And thus he requests the devotee to repair them. Sometimes Krishna is buried in the earth, and as if unable to come out himself, he requests his devotee to rescue him. You know why Krishna is buried in the earth sometimes? It's something that happens, it's historical. Sometimes a deity in the temple is hidden from invaders. When the Muslims invaded India, they sometimes attacked the temples, so the priests would have to hide the deity. Sometimes they hid him in the pond. Sometimes the temple had a pond. They submerged the deity so he would not be seen. Sometimes they put him in the ground, and then they had to flee the attackers, and then the deity was buried, and then later he would reveal himself. Tell some devotee, I'm buried there, please arrange for me to be renovated in the temple. So he requests his devotee to rescue him. Sometimes he requests his devotee to preach his glories all over the world, although Krishna alone is quite competent to perform this task. Even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead is endowed with all possessions and is self-sufficient, he depends on his devotees. Therefore, the relationship of the devotee with the Lord, or of the Lord with his devotees, is extremely confidential. Only the devotee can perceive how the Lord, although full in himself, depends on his devotee for some particular work. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse 33, where the Lord tells Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhavasaya sachin. O Arjuna, merely be an instrument in the fight. Lord Krishna had the competence to win the battle of Kurukshetra, but nonetheless he induced his devotee Arjuna to fight and become the cause of victory. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was quite competent. He was competent enough to spread his holy name and mission all over the world, but still he depended upon his devotee to do this work. Considering all these points, the most important aspect of the Supreme Lord's self-sufficiency is that he depends on his devotees. So this is called his causeless mercy. The devotee who has perceived this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by realization can understand the master and the servant. So it's almost a paradox that Krishna is self-sufficient, but he depends on his devotees. If he's self-sufficient, why isn't he self-sufficient? Because his mercy is extended to his devotees by engaging them in his service. Prabhupada refers to Sri Chaitanya's desire to spread the name of Krishna all over the world, and says still he depended upon his devotee to do this work. And that, of course, that's a self-reference. He's referring to himself. The devotee who spread Krishna consciousness was him. Shishikodantai Mapu Shashi Kijai. So Prabhupada here is revealing that Krishna, as Lord Chaitanya asked him to spread Krishna consciousness, this goes through the parampara. Prabhupada received the request through his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and it was instruction given to others also, but the devotee who really took it up most seriously was Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada took the mood that you can depend on me. He was reciprocating with Lord Chaitanya. You can depend on me. I'll do this job. I'll do this service. And he says Lord Chaitanya depended on him to do this work. So there's this reciprocation. Lord Chaitanya's mercy was given. Prabhupada took it. And it became the purpose, Prabhupada's purpose in life. I was reading a letter in which Prabhupada said, I have not yet finished my purpose. This was in 1967, just 2 years after he started in America, and he was hospitalized. And he was writing from the hospital to someone in India and saying, I still have not finished the purpose for which I came. And so I want to get out of the hospital. I want my health to come back so that I can continue this work. And of course, he carried it on for 10 years more until 1977. And in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is Krishna's instrument. He tells Arjuna to fight, and Krishna says, yes, Krishna says, Arjuna, you become my instrument. So that takes certain qualifications to be the instrument of the Lord. Arjuna is asking Krishna, what are some of the qualifications of someone who's transcendental? How does he act? In the second chapter, he explains, devotee gives up all the varieties of desire for sense gratification. These arise from the mind. The mind concocts desires, how I can be happy. And when the devotee gives up those desires, his mind, in a purified state, finds satisfaction in the self. But the self is not alone. The self is not just, it's not just you, the self, all alone in the world, because the real self is in pure transcendental consciousness, in Krishna consciousness. It's you and Krishna. It's not just that self-realization means I'm an Atma. I know I'm an Atma, a spiritual particle. That's all there is to know. But no, what's the duty? What's the activity of the Atma? That's the service to the Supreme Atma. And this kind of person develops all the good qualities of the great sages. So when we depend on Krishna and do his service, we develop good qualities. That's interesting, how our character improves. Desires cannot be stopped just by some, for example, New Year's resolution. A lot of people make a New Year's resolution. This year I will improve in this way, that way, this way, that. And the desires come back and the desires overwhelm the person and he acts again in the same way he said he was not going to act. So it can't be done artificially. There's actually a lot to be said about how we overcome desires and become self-realized. It has to do with the ideas of ourselves that we project in the world to others. We might project the idea that I'm important in this way, or I'm powerful in this way, or I'm rich in this way. We have some image that we're always projecting because we don't want to pay attention to our bad qualities, and we don't want others to see our bad qualities. So we try to get them to see the things that are considered important for a devotee. You know, a devotee should be like this. So we try to show people, you know, I'm like this. I'm really a good devotee. And in this way, we're kind of covering up and not dealing with the bad qualities, the things that are like in a car. You know, if you're trying to go forward in a car, you press the gas pedal, but then there's the brake. And a lot of times when we're trying to develop our character, we're stepping on the brake. When we're trying to go forward, we end up stepping on the brake. We put the brakes on because we're hung up on our image. And that keeps us from making progress. We indulge in our material desires instead of fulfilling transcendental desires. So there's a lot to be said about that, but I'll go on. Krishna tells Arjuna, as I was saying, Krishna tells Arjuna how a devotee acts and thinks, and there's some important verses about that in the second chapter, 230 and 261. Verse 30 mentions surrendering to Krishna. No, excuse me, not 30. 1 minute. Just find it. What's that verse? $261, huh? Yeah, 230 and, excuse me, it's 330 and 261. 261 says, when you restrain your senses and control your senses and fix your consciousness on me, then you're known as a man with steady intelligence. So this is one of the first verses in the Gita, 261, where Krishna says, fix your consciousness on me. He tells Arjuna, you know, be steady in your intelligence, restrain your senses from material activities, and fight, thinking of me. And then in 330, surrender all your works unto me. Surrender all your activities unto me. with full knowledge of me, without any desire for profit, with no claims to be the proprietor. And don't be lethargic. Don't be in the mode of ignorance. And don't be in the mode of passion. Don't claim that I'm the proprietor. I am the results of the activities are meant for my enjoyment. So those two verses. Mai sarvani karmani sanyas yadyatma chetasa nirashirna mamo bhutva yudyasva vigatav jara. And tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matpara vashe hi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. The last comment I'll make is just about the purport where Prabhupada says Krishna is pleased when his devotee offers him a leaf, flower, fruit, or water. That's a famous verse. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Yome bhakti prayachati. Tadaham bhakti uparitam ashnami prayatatmanaha. With just a little devotion, if you offer something to Krishna, he's pleased. This is something I learned, by meeting devotees. They were offering their food to Krishna and flowers. And they said, anybody can do this. You can offer Krishna these foods and the Lord will accept. So after the devotees left the city where I met them, they went on. And I thought, well, I can do this. I can take my granola and my milk for breakfast, and I can make an offering to Krishna. So I would do that. I would start practicing. I started to practice Krishna consciousness like that. There's also another anecdote about Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. I was with Srila Prabhupada at a Sunday feast in Toronto, and most of the people sitting in front of Prabhupada listening were people from India. So he was, with them in mind, he was saying that, I said, now you have come to the West and you have gotten good jobs, nice salaries, very good cars, nice apartments. But he said, if you forget Krishna, then he quoted this verse, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. You should not forget Krishna. You should offer your food that you eat, you should offer it to Krishna. He was reminding them not to forget Krishna. He said, because if you forget Krishna, then in your next life, you will become a cockroach in your car. Who wants to be a cockroach? Nobody. Prabhupada was he could emphasize the point very nicely. Any questions?
Thank you for class, Prabhu. It says right at the end of the purport that that the devotee can understand the Lord and his servant, right at the very end of the purport. I just wondered, is that meaning that meaning you the servant, you understand your Swarup, or meaning that you understand the servant as the Guru and the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
He understands either his Swarup or what to do?
Yes, it says the devotee who has perceived this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by realization can understand the master and the servant. Is that meaning him, the servant, or meaning?
The devotee who has perceived the causeless mercy of the Supreme by realization can understand the master and the servant. And now you're asking?
Is that meaning the servant?
Himself. That also, yes, because one learns how to be the servant by studying the servant. One is the servant of the servant, so one studies understands the master and the servant, and then also from that he learns how to act like the servant, and then he also understands himself in the Swarup much later. And also we could say it applies to Diti, because she's the servant who's being talked about in these verses. One can understand what Diti was doing under the instruction of Kashyapa, and can understand Krishna, the recipient of the service, by understanding that the Lord is engaging his servants. The Lord shows his mercy by engaging us in service. Sometimes people think that to receive the mercy of God means that God gives me relief from my material distress in 7th chapter. The 4 types of people who are pious and approach the Lord, they want relief from four things. They're distressed and they desire wealth, or they're inquisitive, they want their curiosity to be satisfied, and they're searching for knowledge of the Absolute. So sometimes people want the Lord to give them something to get them out of distress, to give them money even. People pray for wealth. And then the tendency is to forget the Lord after the Lord gives you something, and you think, okay, now my problem is solved, and I don't have to ask the Lord anymore for anything, so I can forget about the Lord for the time being and enjoy the wealth. And Krishna says in the next verse, of these 4 types of people, the one who has developed full knowledge and is always engaged in devotional service is the best, because I'm dear to him and he's dear to me. So one has to come to the platform where one doesn't want material things. One wants just to be engaged in the service of the Lord. And this is the first verse in Bhagavad Gita, number 17, chapter 7. This is the first verse in the Bhagavad Gita that mentions bhakti. You might want to note that. Tesham Gyani Nitya Yukta Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate. Only in devotional service. Always engaged. Nitya Yukta Eka Bhakti. Nitya Yukta Eka Bhakti. This is the best devotee. He's very special. Vishishyate. And he's very dear, Priya. So that's the kind of servant that Krishna wants us to become. We can understand this kind of servant. He's only engaged in devotional service. He's special. He's very dear. He's in knowledge, full knowledge. Krishna wants that kind of servant. Krishna accepts, though, he accepts these other servants that are not as qualified. He says, if you approach me for wealth, if you approach me for relief from distress, I can also act as your master in that regard. I can provide for you. I can protect you. But it's a shifting, you shift your attention to Krishna. It's almost like, if you get married, you have to shift your attention to your wife. And you become united in a relationship. So the devotee shifts to the Lord, Krishna, and becomes united in a relationship also. There was one scholar who studied Indian philosophy and taught in college, and he wrote, he said, the spiritual master is considered so important in this culture. And choosing a spiritual master is considered actually more important than choosing a wife in Indian culture, because you need spiritual knowledge. So you have to have You have two relationships. You have not only a family relationship with the wife and children, but you have a spiritual relationship with your preceptor. So it's very important to choose a preceptor and serve that preceptor so that you understand how to serve Krishna.
See the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality. So developing these qualities means a change of perception.
A change of
Perception.
perception. I would say it does, yeah, because we're all perceptive. We're perceptive about our surroundings, and that includes self-perception, perception. How am I in these surroundings, and how are others, and what is the situation? What has to be done? So yes, surely perception, and it's said that a devotee sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the hearts of everyone. Vidya Vinaya Sampane, one who's learned, he sees with equal vision. He sees that within the body there is the super soul and the soul. So the Lord that he's worshiping, it's not that the Lord that he's worshiping is only on the altar. The Lord that he worships is also in everyone's heart. And he can satisfy others by serving the Lord, who is also in their hearts. When the Lord is satisfied, then the individual is also satisfied. There was one fault in today's class. I spilled the water, and then there was another fault. Nobody brought me any more water, but now it's too late. So every endeavor has some fault. We'll stop there. Thank you. Hare Krishna.